Okay, Virgo, they found out something, and now they can't unknow it. Neither can you. Something traveled without your permission, without your awareness, without any deliberate act of revealing on your part something about you crossed a distance and landed somewhere you weren't watching. And the person it landed on has not recovered from it, not fully, not in the way that ordinary information lands and settles and eventually becomes part of the background. This settled differently. This went somewhere deeper than background. And the chills, that specific, involuntary physical response to something that reaches past the mind and makes contact with something more fundamental, those chills don't lie. Stay with this because what just happened is more significant than it looks from where you're standing. Whew. There's a specific moment when a person's understanding of someone else shifts, not evolves, not grows, but shifts. Suddenly, like a lens that has been slightly out of focus, suddenly, without warning, clicking into clarity. Everything was already there. The information was present. The evidence was available. But something, a new piece, a different angle, an unexpected revelation landing at an unexpected moment rearranged it, made it cohere into a picture that hadn't been visible before. And the picture, once seen, cannot be unseen, cannot be reduced back to the comfortable blur of not quite knowing, cannot be managed into something less significant than what it is. That moment happened for someone about you recently. What did they find out? I want to sit with that question honestly because it's the one this reading orbits, and the honest answer is that I cannot tell you with certainty. What I can tell you is what kinds of things produce that specific response, that involuntary chill, that physical signature of something reaching past the defenses and making contact with something that was not prepared to be contacted. It's not surface information. It's not the kind of thing that produces admiration from a comfortable distance. It's the kind of thing that produces recognition. The specific, almost destabilizing recognition of encountering in another person a depth, a quality, a history, a capacity, a way of being in the world that you were not expecting, that you had not, in your assessment of this person, accounted for, that changes permanently and without your consent the category in which you have been filing them. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you carry? Not what you show, not what you lead with, not what you make easily available to the casual observer, but what lives in the deeper layers of who you are. That tends to produce that quality of response in the people who eventually, accidentally, inevitably find their way to it. Because there is always something specific in the people who produce chills in others, not through performance, not through deliberate revelation, but through the slow, unavoidable emergence of something real. Something that was there all along, that was simply waiting for the right moment or the right angle or the right piece of new information to make it visible. And the person who just found out about you is sitting with the chill of that emergence right now in whatever room they're in, going about whatever their day requires, but not really present for any of it, because something in their mind keeps returning involuntarily to what they learned, to what it means to what it changes about everything they thought they understood about the person you are. Let me tell you what can't stop looks like from the inside. It looks like a person doing ordinary things with approximately half their attention. The other half, the deeper half, the less controllable half, is somewhere else entirely, circling something, returning to it, examining it from new angles, finding new dimensions in it, discovering that the more it is looked at, the more there seems to be to look at. It doesn't feel comfortable necessarily, it feels compelling. There is a difference. Comfortable is what happens when something fits neatly into existing categories. Compelling is what happens when something doesn't, when it exceeds the categories available and keeps demanding that new ones be constructed. You exceed the categories available to this person. That is what produced the chills. Not what you did, not what you said, not any deliberate act of presentation or revelation, simply what you are, the depth of it, the unexpectedness of it. The specific quality of realizing that what was in front of them this whole time was considerably more than what they had been seeing, and that the more than what they were seeing is not a performance, not a curated reveal, just you, in the full, unedited, completely unmanaged version that occasionally, inevitably, refuses to stay contained behind the version you present to the world on ordinary days. Some of you watching this have a habit of making yourselves smaller than you are, not from weakness, from intelligence, from the specific learned understanding that leading with the full version tends to overwhelm, tends to intimidate, tends to produce in people a response that is more disorienting than welcoming. And so you lead with a portion, a carefully selected, accessible, appropriately sized portion, and you hold the rest back, not dishonestly, simply strategically. Because you have learned through enough specific and credible experiences that the full version requires a particular kind of readiness in the person receiving it that not everyone arrives with. And offering the full version to someone who isn't ready tends to end in a specific kind of loneliness that is worse than the loneliness of simply not being fully known. But something leaked. Something from the held back portion crossed the distance and reached this person without going through the careful management process. Without being sized and shaped and made appropriately accessible, it arrived raw, unprocessed. In the full, unmediated, slightly overwhelming form of something real, presenting itself as real, demanding to be received as real. And the chills are the body's way of registering before the mind has caught up that something significant just happened, that the category just expanded, that the person they thought they knew has revealed a dimension that changes fundamentally what knowing them means. This reflection invites you to consider what piece of yourself, what history, what depth, what capacity, what quality of being do you suspect just became visible to someone who wasn't expecting to see it? And how does it feel to know that it landed the way it did? Because how it feels matters. Not to them, to you. The revelation happened in their direction, but the experience of being revealed lives in yours. And that experience of having something real about you seen without your management of the seeing is not always comfortable, even when the response is positive. Even when the response is chills and can't stop, and a person's full attention redirected toward you without your asking for it, it can feel exposing. It can feel vulnerable in the specific way that involuntary visibility always feels vulnerable. The way that being seen without choosing to be seen always carries a slight edge of something that resembles fear, even when the seeing is completely, undeniably good. There is something worth sitting with here, something beneath the obvious reading of this moment, beneath the flattering surface of someone being undone by what they found out about you. Something that belongs specifically to you and not to their response to you. And it's this: what just happened is a reminder that the version of you currently being held back, currently being managed into an appropriately sized and accessible portion, is not the whole story. That the full version, the raw, unprocessed, slightly overwhelming real one, is not too much, is not something that requires management before it is fit for human consumption, is in fact the thing that produces chills in people who encounter it, that produces can't stop, that produces a person sitting in a room somewhere doing ordinary things with half their attention because the other half is still hours later, possibly days later, with you. This reflection invites you to consider what would change in how you move through the world, in how you present yourself, in how much of yourself you allow to be visible, in what you lead with rather than holding back, if you genuinely understood that the unmanaged version of you is the one worth leading with. Some of you have been waiting for permission to be fully yourself, not consciously, not in the explicit, articulable way of a person who knows they are waiting, in the quieter way. The way that shows up as the perpetual slight self editing, the habitual trimming of edges, the reflexive reduction of volume before entering any room that hasn't yet proven it can handle full volume. And the permission apparently just arrived from an unexpected direction in the form of a person who found out something about you and responded involuntarily, physically, undeniably with chills. That response is permission, not from them. They don't have the authority to give you permission to be yourself, and you don't need it from them. But as evidence, as external confirmation of something your interior has been trying to tell you for a long time, that the full version, the real, unedited, slightly overwhelming version, is not a liability, it is your greatest asset. The thing that makes you impossible to categorize, impossible to file away, impossible to encounter and simply move on from. Without the involuntary return, without the chills, without the can't stop that is happening right now in the interior life of someone who found out something about you and has not recovered. The power is yours. It always has been. Not the power to control what people find out or how they respond to what they find or what the chills and the can't stop eventually become in the narrative of your connection with this person. But the power to stop managing the version of yourself you offer the world into something smaller than what is actually there, to stop treating the full version as something that requires careful introduction, to trust not blindly, not without discernment, but with the specific evidence-based trust of someone who just watched their own depth produce an involuntary physical response in another person, that what you carry is not too much, it is exactly enough. It is, in fact, precisely, completely, unmistakably the thing. What they just found out about you gave them chills, and now they can't stop. Not eventually already happening, in the involuntary circling, in the half present ordinary day, in the specific and irreversible way that real things make themselves known once they have been seen. You are always this. You have always carried this. The only thing that changed is that someone found out. Trust yourself with this. The chills weren't about luck or timing or the right information arriving at the right moment. They were about you, exactly as you are, exactly as you have always been, the full version, the real one, the one that was always, beneath everything else, the most significant thing in the room. Before you go, I want to hear from you in the comments. What part of yourself do you hold back most consistently? What quality? What depth? What piece of your real story do you manage most carefully before offering it to the world? And what do you think would happen if you stopped? And has